What's up guys, my name is Ivan Valdovinos, and on this channel I provide tips, tricks, advice, and strategies for your graduate school applications. So if you are new here, consider subscribing. In this video, I am going to share with you the funding package I received for the Masters of Education at the Harvard Graduate School of Education. I know a lot of you on this channel, a lot of my subscribers are interested in attending graduate school at Harvard, and so I thought that it would be a good idea for me to share with you all what a funding package looks like, because there are a lot of misconceptions about funding packages at Harvard. I have received a couple of DMs and like LinkedIn messages about funding, and how people have heard that because Harvard has a large endowment and they're like the best university in the world, that low-income students in particular are going to be able to attend Harvard for free. And so I wanted to kind of derail some of those misconceptions, because that is definitely not true. And so I'm going to share with you everything that I've learned from my experience. That way you're able to kind of plan your financial plan for yourself. Before I share my funding package, I do want to give you a little bit of background about myself and just my background, because the financial aid application does take into account your family situation, the finances your family makes, and your household size, stuff like that. They use an algorithm that helps determine if you're a low income, middle income, or student. And so I kind of want to share a little bit about that, because it's going to give you some context on my funding package. So the first thing that I do want to tell you is that I am a US citizen, so I am eligible for a lot of the federal funding that is provided for United States students. And so that's the first thing I want to say. So if you are an international student, I am not sure about the process, so I suggest that you contact the admissions office or the financial aid office and see what type of funding is available for international students. The next thing I want to mention is that I was considered a low-income student based on federal guidelines. So this meant that my family made at that time less than $35,000 per year, and I had a family household of 4. So that because of that information, that made me a low-income student. And if you are filing the FAFSA application, you usually get this number. It's called the expected family contribution. And so my expected family contribution was 0, which meant that I was low income, that I should receive the full amount of funding from whatever institution that I am applying to. Something else that I do want to mention is that for graduate school, especially in the United States, funding is very limited. Usually it's only loans. And this is mostly for master's programs. When you get to the PhD level, you should expect to receive a full funded package. And I suggest that if you don't receive a full funded package, that you do not attend. The next thing that I want to talk about is Harvard's large endowment. So Harvard's endowment for this past year, it was $41 billion. And so what I read online was that they distribute this money just in different sectors of their budget plan for the year. So different departments, different research facilities receive funding from this endowment. And I suggest that you look at their website and read about their endowment to learn more about it. But what I read and what I know is that most of the endowment goes to the undergraduate college, and they do distribute a little bit to the graduate schools, but not that much, because the endowment is made up of donations from alumni. And so most people that attend Harvard College, the undergraduate college, they make way more money than someone from, like, let's say an alumni from the education school. And so that's why the education school doesn't have a large endowment or a large amount of funding, because a lot of their alumni are not making a lot of money to be able to give back to the graduate school. And so that's why when we look at my funding package, you're gonna see that I did not receive a lot of the free funding, the free money, that I was offered more loans than free money. And that's one of the reasons why, because Harvard Graduate School of Education does not have the funding, the donations to provide their low-income students with the free master's education. And so that's something to consider, because a lot of people think that because Harvard does have a large endowment, that if they are a low-income student, they're going to receive full funding. But this does not apply to graduate school. It only applies to the undergrad. So the undergraduate students that are low income, they should expect to receive full funding for their education at Harvard. All right, so now let's take a look at my funding package. One thing that I do want to let you know is that I attended Harvard Graduate School of Education in the academic year of 2015-2016. So these numbers could change, because usually, cost of attendance of a school does increase every year. So it probably is going to be more expensive to attend HGSE now than it was when I went. But here are just kind of like the information that I received. That way you're able to see, what to expect if you do get in and you do receive an award package. So the first thing that's on this award letter here is an HGSE grant. So this is a need-based grant that I received. So in total, I received $13,000 of free funding, a free need grant from HGSE. And what I learned was that that I received the full amount of the grant because my EFC was 0. So because I was a low-income student, I received the full need grant from the Harvard Graduate School of Education. The next thing is a federal work study, which I received almost $3,000. And so this is federal. So like I mentioned earlier, if you're an international student, you probably won't receive a work study allocation because you have to be a US citizen. And this is through the financial aid application that's for US citizens. And so what this meant was that they did not give me the $3,000. What I had to do was, get a job, and the federal government would pay for my money up to this amount. And so I did have an internship that did pay me above minimum wage. That was really helpful with my living expenses. The next three, categories here, the next sources that I received were all loans. So I received federal Perkins loans, direct unsubsidized loan, direct graduate plus loan. And as you can tell, if you total that, that's a little bit over $50,000 in loans that I have to repay once I am graduated from the college and I receive, and I get a job. And so right now I'm actually still in debt. It's been almost 6 years now, and I barely made a dent. And the reason why was because interest rates, obviously, they increase, and it's been a while now. So I've mainly been paying interest, but also because I'm not aggressively paying the loans. I have other expenses that I'm taking care of first before I, aggressively pay for these loans. But I am honestly not even worried about it because I do make enough money, or I did make enough money to be able to pay these loans off pretty quickly. So that's something to consider when you are considering, going to HGSE. Like, are you comfortable taking out a large amount of loans, and are you going to be able to pay those loans based on your projected career? Yeah, so if you see here, in total I am receiving $68,665 to fund my education at the Harvard Graduate School of Education for a master's program for 1 year. And so with this money, I should be able to pay for my my tuition and fees, but also my living expenses. So I want to end this video by just kind of giving you my general thoughts on the funding and what I think you should do to be able to fund this education, or things to consider. So the first thing I want to mention is that I think it's ridiculous that Harvard, the best school in the world, is unable to fund low-income students full capacity. So I would at least expect them to be able to pay the full tuition. Maybe not the living expenses, but like at least the full tuition for low-income graduate students, because a lot of the time low-income students, they don't have the financial information or the financial, wellness skills to be able to, set a plan to be able to pay for this education, so they won't attend. And so I think that that's like one of the bad things about HGSE and just Harvard Graduate School in general is that they don't really cater towards their low-income first generation college students, and I think that they need to do a better job of doing that because it steers away those students who are maybe not able to pay a large sum of money to attend a prestigious university. Something else that I do want to tell you guys about is that I attended an admitted students weekend where a bunch of us Latino students, which was not that many, it was like about 10 of us that got accepted. We banded together to ask for additional funding to negotiate our funding, and they straight out said no. And so the reason behind this is because they know that any student is dying to attend HGSE. So they know that their acceptance rates from students are still going to be high because a lot of people want to attend HGSE. So if you decide not to attend because they don't provide you enough funding, they don't care. They can just accept someone else on the wait list, and they will gladly accept. And so that's the reason why they're wary of increasing your funding. Because they know that they're a prestigious school and they can get anybody to attend. So like I mentioned earlier, I ended up borrowing $50,000 in loans, and for me it was worth it for a lot of reasons. So the first thing is that my undergraduate career was paid for fully through scholarships and financial aid, so I came out of my undergraduate career with no debt. I did attend HGSE right out of undergrad, and so for me, I was young and I knew that I was able to pay this large amount of loans pretty quickly, at least in my lifetime, and so I felt comfortable taking out the $50K in loans. And also I thought about it as an investment. It's gonna leverage my career quicker than if I did not attend. And so I've already seen those those outcomes in terms of me getting this degree. I was able to move up in the higher ed space pretty quickly with limited experience because of my knowledge and the degree. People are always impressed with the Harvard degree, so they're willing to give you a chance because they expect you to have learned the skills to be able to do well in a position that's really high, like a senior level position. And obviously those positions pay more money, depending on where you're at, obviously. And also I knew that my cost of living was going to be low because I do intend to work at a rural community, and so usually rural communities, the cost of living is really low. And so I knew that was going to help me pay those loans quicker if I aggressively paid for them. And so these are some of the reasons why I chose to take out $50K in loans. But I suggest that you think about where you're at and if this is going to be a well worth investment, and then jot down the pros and cons of attending and not attending. So if you have any questions, feel free to drop those down in the comments. This is the first video I'm starting about my series where I share my funding packages from multiple universities. And I am currently in a PhD program, so I will be sharing PhD funding packages from a couple of colleges or graduate schools that I was accepted into. That way you get a variety of packages that I was offered, and you can kind of see what to expect if you do get offered a PhD or master's acceptance, and how the funding might look like for you. I do also want to mention that a lot of these institutions do offer fellowships, but they're very limited. So usually 1 or 2 people from the incoming class receives a fellowship, which usually pays for full tuition. And so those are really hard to get, especially at Harvard, because everybody that got accepted has exceptional skills and an exceptional background. And so only a few students received that fully funded package. Obviously I didn't, but you can expect that as well if your application package looks really well and it's in the top of the class. Alright, so that concludes my video on sharing my funding package for the Harvard Graduate School of Education. I hope it was helpful for you to see kind of what to expect if you did apply for Harvard and any of their graduate schools. Like I mentioned earlier, subscribe to my channel and like this video because I am going to share other funding packages in this month of February. You should expect to hear back about admissions either this month or next month, and you usually receive the funding packages, especially for PhD programs, when you get accepted. And so I want you to start planning and making that financial plan. So thank you for watching this video, and I will see you in the next video.